Hill Gate to the south, Harrow Road to the north, Queensway to the east and the West Cross route to the west. For all the details of the closures, head to our website at lbc.co.uk. Ladbroke Grove Tube Station is also closed today and tomorrow because of Carnival. In Deptford, Creek Road is closed in both directions because of a police investigation between Deptford Church Street and Creekside. It's slow in the city on Cannon Street in both directions. It's partially blocked at Walbrook because of some crane works. And on the rails, major engineering work means there are no trains going in or out of Euston Station until Tuesday morning. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. Well, isn't it nice that at least traditional bank holiday weather is back, with many of us going to get a complete dousing this afternoon, and this on the day when the Pope, as we speak, has arrived in Knock in the west coast of Ireland, where it's wet and windy, where he'll give, I think, the fourth speech in 2 days that he's given, and the Pope acknowledging many of the things that have gone wrong in the Catholic Church in the past, in particular the way that many young children were treated and abused. We will get, at some point in the next couple of hours, we'll go live to the stadium in Knock and find out exactly what he has to say today. We've also learnt overnight that Senator John McCain, veteran of US politics, he's been in the US Senate since the 1980s, has died overnight after a long battle with brain cancer. McCain, of course, famous for being captured in Vietnam and treated very, very badly indeed, and probably President Trump's most vociferous high-profile critic within the Republican Party over the course of the last 18 months or so. We'll talk a bit about John McCain. But the story that really grips me this morning is, I grew up thinking that, it was the Conservative Party who were the capitalists. It was the Conservative Party who were hard-hearted. It was the Conservative Party that believed economic success mattered more than anything. And it was the Labour Party that were the caring party that really were very inclusive, wanted to fight against all forms of discrimination. And it was Theresa May herself who sort of damned her own party in a move that politically probably wasn't very wise, when she talked about the nasty party. The Tories were seen as the nasty party, and yet, over the last few weeks, barely a day seems to go by when we don't get a story of some kind that Jeremy Corbyn appeared on a platform with Hamas, appeared being photographed at a martyr's cemetery with people directly involved with organisations that one who killed a British rabbi, and there, standing by graves of some who committed murder at the Munich Olympics of 1972. And behind all of that, online, apparently horrendous things being said between Labour activists, and much of it directed at Jewish Labour MPs. So we really have sunk to something, haven't we, when we learn that at next month's Labour Party conference, Labour MPs will be given bodyguards for their own safety amid the raging anti-Semitism row. I find it almost beyond belief that actually the Labour Party has reached that. And I wonder now whether it's fair to say that maybe it's the Labour Party that have now become the nasty party of British politics. And I have to say, some of their hard left activists, I've come up against, they've stood outside my meetings shouting racist. It seems to be about the highest form of intellectual debate they can ever engage upon. One of the most prominent doing it to me in meetings in Kent is now suspended from the Labour Party for anti-Semitism. I would use the word irony, but I'm afraid I can't do that now because Jeremy Corbyn used that, of course, didn't he? He said that some British Zionists, despite the fact they've lived here all their lives, have no sense of British irony. Creating, I think many felt, an us and them. If any of you listened yesterday to Majid Nawaz's show, it was quite extraordinary. British Jewish people ringing up Majid, a couple of them in tears, saying they fear that if Mr Corbyn becomes Prime Minister, they may have to leave this country. I mean, it's unbelievable how bad, how ugly, how nasty this is. Now, that's my perception. But hey, I'm asking you, do you think the Labour Party have become the nasty party? If you think no, absolutely not. The Tories have got that title. They're the hard-hearted ones. They always will be. Then call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think, actually, do you know what? every week that goes by, it gets nastier and nastier. And I now think they've taken the title. Then text to 84850. Or is Corbyn right when he says, actually, this is all an unfair media taking his comments out of context? And as John McDonnell said yesterday, all Mr. Corbyn has ever sought is peace. If that's how you feel, please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch us on Facebook and you can comment there too. I'm going to go first to somebody who I'm guessing is probably holding his head in his hands with disbelief. A former strategist for the Labour Party, senior policy advisor in 2004-05 and director of political operations 05 to 07 to Tony Blair. In many ways, Labour's golden days. John McTernan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, when you were there, the Labour Party was inclusive. There were no... Yeah. There was never a suggestion during Tony Blair's period of office of discrimination against any group. What on earth has happened to your party?
I'm afraid the Labour Party has never had this kind of association. It's never had these people in the Labour Party. They've come in because of the change of leadership. The strand of politics on the far left is well known. People on the far left who've got anti-Semitism as core to their politics. They're now in the Labour Party. They've been welcomed in by Jeremy Corbyn. He opened the door to them, he and John McDonnell. And the Corbynite Labour Party, it was already, we heard before that Laura Kuenssberg, the BBC political editor, had to have...
that was last year's conference, wasn't it? Yeah.
And now we've got Jewish MPs going to have protection. That is a nastiness that's been brought into the heart of the Labour Party by Jeremy Corbyn. He's responsible for this because it does rest with the leader ultimately, but he's also responsible for the remarks which have scared, shocked, frightened the Jewish community in Britain. And I would not be surprised if people think that we are now in competition for the title of the nasty party.
So only in competition, in your view, John?
I think Theresa May, with what she does on disability benefits, Theresa May, what she does in other parts of the welfare reform, she's keeping in contention for the title of nasty party.
Okay, well, it's a pretty ugly contest then, whichever way you look at it. But the real question is, you made it clear that these people are now in control, and of course it was Ed Miliband that opened up the concept of the £3 member. Not that Ed Miliband would ever have wanted anything like this to happen. But the real question is, what on earth happens now? How do you and people like you, lifelong Labour people who care about the Labour Party and its message, how do you reclaim it? Indeed, can you now reclaim it from the Corbynistas?
We're still the Labour Party. We still have a very powerful trade union movement. Almost all the trade union leaders are moderate. Almost all the trade union leaders regard what Jeremy Corbyn has done with disgust. Unfortunately, Len McCluskey at Unite has chosen to use his position as the General Secretary to attack the Jewish community, to claim that he doesn't understand what they want. He's got the same tone of voice, the same exasperated tone of voice that Jeremy Corbyn uses. And I often think that there's something very, Jeremy Corbyn talked about how these British Zionists, by which he meant British Jews, how British Jews have lived here, they don't understand our ways, they need lessons, They don't understand English irony. It's a very, very English lower middle class form of racism that masquerades as exasperation with those who won't fit in. And I think the nastiest thing about that is the way that tone has spread and the way that you see his followers over the last few weeks on Twitter and social media. They find defences even when he has changed his mind. He wasn't there while he was. He didn't lay a wreath while he did. He didn't know it was Black September. Well, actually, he did. It's the ways in which he's got a movement that constantly changes position. That is intimidating. And I think that the way to take the Labour Party back is for the trade union movement to come to its senses and to say this is doing no good for working people. Doing no good for working people, whether they're black or they're Asian or whether they're Jewish or whether they're white working class. It's a distraction from what the Labour Party should be doing, but it's worse than that now. It's a virus that's eating away at the Labour Party.
Yeah, I'm afraid that even the trade union movement argument doesn't work when, as you say yourself, Len McCluskey, the biggest and most powerful of all the trade union leaders, has said some very provocative things. I listened to Mike Gapes yesterday, Labour MP, outright calling his own leader a racist and an anti-Semite and saying, I've had enough. Now, there are reports, and obviously we're always careful about reports in newspapers, but reports that Peter Mandelson's been holding a series of breakfasts. I mean, does it come to the point for MPs like Mike Gapes where, frankly, as a matter of principle, all they can do is leave the party and try and help form a new centre party?
Well, as you know, in September, when MPs come back, the Labour MPs are going to vote on whether to adopt the IHRA full definition of anti-Semitism and to put it in their rules. That's going to be a major flashpoint, because the rules of the Parliamentary Labour Party are for MPs to make. They also have to be approved by the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, dominated by Corbynites. If Corbyn's faction in the Labour Party decide to prevent MPs from having a definition of anti-Semitism, which is internationally recognised, we'll know why it is. I often wondered why they were so stubborn. Then that tape came out from the 2013 intervention by Corbyn. The Corbynites are defending Jeremy Corbyn, because if the PLP change their rules, he will be open to discipline by the PLP rules because he's broken the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. That's what's making Mike Gapes so angry. That's what's making so many Labour MPs angry. People will work within the rules until it's impossible to work within the rules to reverse this appalling takeover of the Labour Party. And as for Peter has breakfast all the time.
Yeah, of course he does. But at what... Okay, finally, John McTernan, at what point do you decide that you can't stick with the Labour Party?
I'm in Harriet Harman's constituency. I've been in her constituency since the 90s. I will always work for a Labour MP as election when that's a Labour MP whose views I support. Once momentum start, or once the Corbynites really start sweeping through, deselecting decent MPs, replacing them with far-left MPs, that's the moment at which everybody will have to consider their position in the Labour Party.
Yeah, OK. John, thank you. Well, that was John McTernan, former strategist for Tony Blair, and he couldn't have been clearer, could he? He could not have been clearer about what Corbyn has done to the Labour Party. Boy, it's not only a mess, but they do, to me, look like the nasty party. In fact, the very, very nasty party. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive in LBC, and it's 10:16.
This is LBC.
Your company's doing pretty well. Your tax position's okay. So what's keeping you awake at night?
To face the future with confidence, talk to Vision Consulting. We've expanded from Gants Hill to the Gherkin, with clients from the fishmonger to the multi-million-pound property investment company. And our growth as a firm of chartered accountants and registered auditors is based on our passion for our clients' business.
Have confidence in your accountant. See visionconsulting.co.uk.
Buying a new car can be a haunting experience. Is there enough room for the little monsters? Will it be devilishly expensive to run? Will I be haunted by the price? Well, from only $9,995, the all-new Dacia Duster gives you the freedom to get what you want with none of the ghoulies. Dacia, you do the maths. Participating dealers only.
Oh, there's a great deal on ripen at home avocados. Sure, they'll be as hard as rock for the first 18 days, 3 hours and 20 minutes. Then they'll be ready to eat for about 10 minutes. Then they'll go off. For a better deal, head to Costa Coffee and grab a delicious piping hot bacon roll or egg muffin for just £2 when you buy any Medio or Massimo hot drink or flat white before 11 a.m. The Coffee Plus menu from Costa Coffee. Visit costa.co.uk for full terms and participating stores.
Don't miss the last few days of the Furniture Village sale this bank holiday weekend, with final reductions on a huge choice of sofas, dining and beds, including all our famous brands. So pop in store or go online now and complete your home in one in the Furniture Village sale. Many offers end bank holiday Monday.
It's Greek Week at Lidl. You can get a 6-pack of Mythos beer for only $4.49. A pack of baklava just $2.49. And rice-filled vine leaves only $1.19. Smashing! Plate smashing! Hurry down to Lidl for the full Greek range. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes NI and Scotland.
Looking for your perfect kitchen? Visit roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Everyone's asking you if you've ever had PPI, and for a good reason. If you've had a mortgage, loan or credit card in the past, you could be owed thousands. The deadline for making a PPI claim has now been set, so now's the time to text Allay Claims to see if you could be due a refund. We'll do a free, no obligation PPI check and let you know if you could be owed money. So don't be off your trolley. Get in touch with Allay Claims now. Text WIN to 60012. That's WIN to 60012.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, I thought that interview with John McCain, former Blair personal advisor, before the break was very, very telling. You know, I was saying, have the Labour Party now become the nasty party as the anti-Semitism row just gets worse and worse? And I thought he'd say to me, well, we've got a problem, Nigel, but we'll deal with it. That wasn't what he said. What he said is the Corbynites have taken over the party. And his fear now is that they will go round constituency by constituency, getting rid of moderate Labour MPs and replacing them with extremists. I think they are the nasty party. You tell me I'm wrong. 0345 6060 973. Right, my next caller is Valerie from Lambeth, who's new to this show. Valerie, good morning.
Good morning to you. Well, I agree with the last speaker, absolutely, except I don't think the whole party is the nasty party. I think these creatures that have taken over the party are not only nasty, they make me sick to my stomach. Corbyn went to lay the wreath at the grave of those murderers,
yes.
And then when it came out now that they tortured those young athletes to death, they castrated one gorgeous young man and broke the bones of all the others. And while they held them as prisoners, instead of saying, oh, I'm disgusted now, how disgusting thing to do, he hasn't said a word about it. He doesn't say a word about Christians being tortured all over the Middle East by the Arabs. He doesn't say a word about gay people being thrown off the tallest buildings in Gaza. I just despise him utterly.
And yet, you know, Valerie, I listened to John McDonnell yesterday morning. He said, you have to understand that Jeremy has always sought peace. And the implication of that was, well, when you're seeking peace, you have to speak to all sorts of people. To my knowledge, Valerie, Jeremy Corbyn has never had a single meeting with the Israelis to try and seek peace on both sides of this dispute in that troubled part of the world.
That's right. And he has been. Nobody in the Labour Party is trying to speak up for the Kurds. They're being tortured to death now, right now, today. Nobody tries to save the Christians being thrown off the tallest buildings. I simply can't believe that he even dares to say that he's trying to seek peace. What peaceful thing has he ever done?
Well, yeah, but of course, he was always considered, of course, Valerie, to be a sort of a very eccentric, extreme backbencher and somebody who could be comfortably ignored. Valerie, tell me, are you a member of the Labour Party?
My husband was the chief whip of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and when I was running Labour Friends of Israel, you know, I said, what about this Corbyn? He's a complete non-entity. Don't take any notice of him. In those days, we were worried about Tony Benn and militant tendency.
So your husband was a Labour MP for how long?
For 30 years. He was the chief whip for 12 years.
Right, OK, that's Michael Cox. Yes. Well, Valerie, so the Labour Party's been a huge part of your life.
Of course, I've never voted anything else but Labour, but now I haven't even got anyone to vote for.
So what happens, Valerie? I mean, do you stay a member of the Labour Party and hope...
No, I've already left. I wouldn't be in the same party as Corbyn and McDonnell and John Landsman, who's the Jewish one, who's worse than any of them, in my opinion.
And do you see any resolution to... I mean, Valerie, clearly you agree with me that they are the nasty party in every sense, but...
I don't think the whole party. Most of my friends in Labour are very nice people and want to help people. But this cohort that have taken over the party, it's a tragedy. My husband must be spinning in his grave.
How, Valerie, can it be saved, in your view?
only by getting rid of this lot of people and having the normal, decent Labour MPs that they want to get rid of, saving them and saving their jobs, and having the same old Labour Party. When I was running Labour Friends of Israel, Harold Wilson was the president.
Yep.
Lord Glenamara, who'd been the Deputy Prime Minister, was the Vice President, and Ian McCarter, who was a left-wing Labour Jewish MP, was a chairman. The whole Labour Party was pro-Israel, and look what the Arabs are doing. Look what the Arabs are doing to the Kurds now. For God's sake, somebody has to help them.
I know, there's some horrible, awful things going on. Valerie, I want to thank you for that call. Very, very much indeed. Thank you. Well, that was Valerie, a very, very, very heartfelt call from somebody whose late husband was a Labour MP and the Labour Chief Whip, and she ran Labour Friends of Israel. Harold Wilson was the president. Haven't times changed? Ben is calling from Clacton in Essex. Ben, hello.
Hello, I've got a question for you, Nigel.
I've got a question for you. Is Labour now the nasty party?
My question first.
Oh, Ben, you're going to be one of these very boring people. Is the Labour Party now the nasty party?
No, I'll ask you a question before I begin.
Oh, dear. Cheers, Ben. Bye-bye. Let's go to James in Bournemouth. James, good morning.
Nigel, hi there. Nice to speak to you.
Nice to speak to you.
To answer the question, because the last person clearly couldn't without waffling, are they? Yeah, absolutely they are. I think it speaks volumes when you've got Nick Griffin and the KKK.
Yes, David Duke of the Ku Klux Klan and Nick Griffin tweeting, "Go Jezza."
Nigel, you were criticised for putting a poster up during the referendum over Brexit.
Yes.
Look at the heat you took for that. As a non-practicing, and all my friends would know me, would say I'm the most non-practicing person they know. A belief in the state of Israel is something that goes through the core of most British Jews, and stands up and condescendingly tells me that I need a history lesson. Okay.
Do you get irony, James?
Oh, absolutely.
Because what Corbyn was saying was that even though you might have grown up here, if you're Jewish, somehow you have a different perception of humour in the world.
What's incredible is I'm a serving police officer.
Yeah.
I'm therefore non-political. But it's interesting that the one party that if I wanted to vote for, the BNP, for example, I couldn't because I would lose my job. I wonder how far we are, seriously, from the Labour Party being added to that, because frankly, as a British Jew, I'm getting to the stage where I don't know how anyone can support that man anymore. It's getting to a point where...
James, they do. James, a lot of people still do. And there are still, and I've spoken to a few in the last couple of days, still young people out there who say, look, he's a good man, he wants peace, and the media are just being unfair to him.
He doesn't meet the Israeli side?
No, never.
He did the same with the IRA as well. That is not a man of peace. That's a man who we're constantly told has principles. But I'm watching a man laying a wreath at ceremonies for terrorists. Listen, at the end of the day, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. And unfortunately, with Corbyn, from what I see and the way he responds, and the condescending manner in which he referred to as my people, ultimately, as them and they.
Yeah, that was the problem, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I tell you what, James, if I'd come close to that, I think I probably would have had to emigrate. Such would have been the abuse. James, I thank you for your call. And by the way, that previous caller I got rid of, I want you to come and tell me that I'm wrong. I want you to come and tell me you support Corbyn and what is happening here is unfair and a gross misinterpretation. But, the point of the show is we have a theme to debate. Let's debate it. You can always ask me a supplementary, but don't come on. This is not Mastermind. I'm not, So please play the game, and you'll always get a chance to ask me a question. I'll always do my very best to answer it. But don't, for goodness' sake, please play the game. Let's go to Ed in Blackheath. Ed, good morning.
Well, thank you, Nigel, for having me on. I take a very different view to yourself.
Right, let's hear it.
I've been a Labour Party member for 40 years. I've known Jeremy Corbyn for about 40 years. There's nothing nasty about him. What he's done, he's raised the issue of the war between the Palestinians and the Israelis. I personally don't take sides in that war. It's very regrettable. I think it's important that it's debated, and it's not nasty to debate a Middle Eastern war. There are enough of them going on. And I think the thing is, my criticism of you, I'm sorry, Nigel, is you ask for open debate, honest debate about immigration, Europe, the cities, all this kind of thing. This is the centre of this debate, which you're now sucked into, is trying to take sides in a war. Well, I want peace in the Middle East. I don't want to back one side or the other. And I think if the United Nations and other big institutions would put their minds to this, maybe there would be peace between Palestine and Israel.
All right, Ed, I know, I hear what you say, but let me say this back to you. If Jeremy Corbyn is this peace broker, which is the way that John McDonnell tried to portray him yesterday morning, surely, Ed, if he was a peace broker, he would have met both sides.
Well, he has met both sides. I know for a fact that he's met friends of mine who are Jewish. He's met them in Parliament. He's met people who are very closely associated with the Israeli government. I think that's a bit of a slur to say that.
Well, one of my
Jewish lobby.
One of my previous callers, Ed, was a lady called Valerie Cox, who used to run the Labour Friends of Israel group, and she made it perfectly clear in her phone call he'd never engage with them.
Well, I don't agree with her. I know for certain that he's met Jewish people living in London and Jewish people who live abroad.
Okay.
I don't understand. But my main point is there going to be peace in the Middle East? What do you want? Do you want peace in the Middle East? And how are we going to...
Well, of course, Ed.
How are we going to put forward the Palestinian point of view? And when we do, people always get language wrong. Any subject, people get language wrong and make mistakes. And that's the part of debate. And I think the courtesy of debate is to listen to both sides and forget their language sometimes, because of course it's going to be wrong. Of course people are going to make mistakes.
Do you want a two-state solution, Ed?
I want a country in the Middle East where Jews, Arabs, Muslims, Christian Jews can all live happily together. That's what I want. I don't necessarily agree with a two-state solution.
Do you think Israel has a right to exist?
I do think it's got a right to exist, but they have also got the obligation to talk to the warring factions in the Middle East.
Okay.
Why don't they talk sensibly?
Ed, let me ask you just one more quick question, because we've got to run after that. You know, would it be fair to judge a man by the company he keeps? And hasn't Jeremy Corbyn spent a little bit too much time with people directly linked to terrorist groups?
Well, I've actually been to some of these meetings that you're referring to.
Okay.
Nigel. But I mean, as far as I know, Hamas was we insist on democratic elections in Lebanon and places like that, and Hamas were elected. I mean, I think and the Israeli government are sort of busily firing bullets at children. I mean, I think if you laid... it's very difficult, isn't it? And even the British government has done shocking things. As that chap who's on earlier, who was criticising Corbyn, presumably he was supporting the Iraq War and trying to propagate it amongst...
Well, that's almost certainly probably the case, Ed, and there are many hypocrisies in this. So, okay, Ed, Jeremy Corbyn's a good man, yeah? I've lost him. Right, that was Ed, a very strong pro-Corbyn supporter, which is why I gave him as much time as I did. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show. It is now 10:31 and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
Police chiefs have invoked special powers to stop and search anyone for weapons at the Notting Hill Carnival in West London later. It's as a man in his 20s has died in South East London after the fourth stabbing in the capital this bank holiday weekend. The American flag is flying at half-mast above the White House in memory of Senator John McCain. The 81-year-old Vietnam veteran has died following a battle with brain cancer. The Pope has arrived at a holy shrine revered by Irish Catholics in the west of Ireland. The event comes before a huge mass in Dublin's Phoenix Park, for which 500,000 people have tickets. LBC weather dry and bright in the east, but elsewhere cloud, rain and strong winds developing, a high of 19 degrees.
LBC Travel, the Notting Hill Carnival starts today, so it's Family Day. Roads are now closed until Tuesday morning from Notting Hill Gate to the south, Harrow Road to the north, Queensway to the east and the West Cross route to the west. For all the details of the closures, head to our website at lbc.co.uk. Ladbroke Grove Tube Station is also closed today and tomorrow because of the carnival. In Deptford, Creek Road is closed in both directions because of a police investigation between Deptford Church Street and Creekside. On the rails, major engineering works mean there are no trains going in or out of Euston Station until Tuesday morning, and Thameslink are running a reduced service between Rainham in Kent and Kentish Town because of a shortage of train crew. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
Coming soon to LBC, Eddie Mair.
Add in a splash of colour this bank holiday. At B&Q, check out the low prices across our paint range, including all Dulux 5 litre standard coloured emulsion for just £20. It's perfect for an indoor refresh. So for low prices on all your painting essentials, you can do it when you B&Q it.
Don't miss the last few days of the Furniture Village sale this bank holiday weekend, with final reductions on a huge choice of sofas, dining and beds, including all our famous brands. So pop in store or go online now and complete your home in one in the Furniture Village sale. Many offers end bank holiday Monday.
Are estate agents revolting? At eMove we are really revolting. We're revolting and revolutionising to create an easier and fairer way to sell your home. We're calling it an e-movement, combining the benefits and savings of online with real dedicated property experts at every step of your sale. Revolt with us. Join the e-movement. Visit emove.co.uk. Rated the UK's #1 hybrid estate agent on all agents.
Everyone's asking you if you've ever had PPI, and for a good reason. If you've had a mortgage, loan or credit card in the past, you could be owed thousands. The deadline for making a PPI claim has now been set, so now's the time to text Allay Claims to see if you could be due a refund. We'll do a free, no obligation PPI check and let you know if you could be owed money. So don't be off your trolley. Get in touch with Allay Claims now. Text WIN to 60012. That's WIN to 60012.
Tonight on Gold, it's the royal family's 20th birthday.
It'll be the best birthday ever, this.
So Gold's celebrating with a bunch of the best episodes.
I want to enjoy myself. We're 24-hour party people.
The royal family's 20th birthday, every night this bank holiday weekend. Tonight from 9 on the Gold TV channel. Available on Sky, Virgin and BT.
Last year in England, more than 250,000 workplaces took on an apprentice. I'm here with James Nevin from Blue Engineering to find out how apprenticeships have benefited their business.
As a young business in a competitive industry, it's not always easy to find the right talent. I first started looking into apprenticeships when the business pretty much started. Apprentices bring new ideas and their own creativity to the business, which we found gives us a real competitive edge. Once they're up and running, they really are a powerful force within a company.
To find out how apprenticeships can work for your business, phone 08000 150 600 for free advice or search Hire an Apprentice.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Has Labour become the nasty party? I think it has. The hard left have taken it over, and we're seeing Corbyn just mixing with the most appalling terrorist-type people and saying things about British Zionists, brackets Jews, that are really deeply unpleasant. But before we get back to that, and by the way, I want both sides of this debate. Overnight, we've learnt that Arizona Senator, long-serving politician John McCain has died at the age of 81 after a long battle against brain cancer. McCain, remember, the Vietnam veteran, held for 5 years in captivity, very badly beaten during that time, ran as American president, real thorn in the side of Donald Trump over the course of the last 18 months or so. Our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks, reports on his life.
Senator McCain's death was announced by his office in Washington, a fitting decision given that he'd been a fixture here since the 1980s. He served 5 years in a Vietnamese prisoner of war camp, was tortured there, and brought to Washington a moral compass that allowed him to oppose even his own Republican Party when they favoured torture, or more recently, the scrapping of Obamacare. He loathed President Trump, and the feeling was mutual, though the president has tweeted a message of sympathy and respect to his family.
That was a short summation of the life there, political life as well, of John McCain. And his final public speech was made last October as he received the Liberty Medal from America's National Constitution Centre. Let's hear him.
to abandon the ideals we have advanced around the globe, to refuse the obligations of international leadership and our duty to remain the last best hope of Earth for the sake of some half-baked, spurious nationalism cooked up by people who would rather find scapegoats than solve problems is as unpatriotic as an attachment to any other tired dogma of the past that Americans consigned to the ash heap of history.
So even there, in the last months of his life and seriously ill, still a bit of fire burning there, wasn't there, in John McCain? I'm going to go to Bill Barnard, American political commentator and author of Dixiecrats and Democrats, and ask him, Bill, good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think John McCain's legacy to American politics is?
I think it's an example of the kind of life, the principle of life, the life of character that one can lead in politics that is so often absent in today's world. It was harkening back to an older era. Maybe we look back with golden lenses on those kinds of people in the past, but we seem to have had a level of political ability and a level of political character that seems so often missing in today's politics.
Yes, I mean, we're so used, aren't we, all over the West, Bill, to career politicians who come straight from university into research offices and then they become politicians, and they kind of do what the party tells them to do. McCain was not made of that stuff, was he?
He was not at all. I mean, he had shown himself in war, for example, to be a great national hero and an incredible example. I mean, the decision that he made not to accept the Vietnamese offer of early release because his father was an admiral, not to accept that offer until his own men could be released. It shows something of the character of the man, and
yes.
I think it's greatly to be admired.
Yes, and now for Donald Trump, of course, politically, it was the McCain vote, effectively, that stopped the Trump healthcare package from going through. What actually happens now to that Arizona seat?
Well, the Republican governor will nominate a replacement, name a replacement, and that will continue to be filled until there's an election for the full term. So there will continue to be 51 Republicans in the Senate, in the U.S. Senate.
Right, and so that will be politically a relief for Donald Trump. I mean, he's not likely, is he, to get replaced by somebody quite as antagonistic towards him as John McCain was?
Well, I would prefer in this particular moment not to kind of dwell upon the controversies of the last years or so between McCain and Trump, but rather to dwell upon the life of this man of real character and real honor, a national hero in American politics. I mean, I come from the opposite political tradition,
sure,
and on many issues would have been opposed to John McCain, but you could never doubt that his position was taken from a point of principle and that he really believed in what he was doing. He had to adjust to political realities, to be sure, as anyone does who survives in political life, but nonetheless that core principle and character was there.
I think in some ways, Bill, he died as he lived. He could, when he was first diagnosed with brain cancer, have gone away, and yet he decided to fight on for what he believed in, and I think that is an extraordinary thing for him to do. Bill Barnard, thank you. And that's a very interesting life of John McCain, and it is really important that we do, whether we agree with people politically or not, we recognise them for what they are. And John McCain, there's no question, a man of principle, fighting for what he believed in, right up, virtually, until a couple of months before he died of brain cancer. I wish, in many ways, there were a lot more people in politics who did it because they believed in what they were doing. He certainly did. Let's go to Finchley in North London and speak to Ambrosine. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning. I want to bring us back to this Corbyn rhetoric and the anti-Semitism. On Wednesday, I was one of a group of Jews that went to an event which was entitled Jeremy Corbyn, Anti-Semitism and Justice. And I was part of a list of Jews that wasn't let into the meeting. We were standing there while our names were being called. Now, this is a three-pronged issue.
Are you a Labour Party member?
Never been. Always been a Conservative. It wasn't a Labour Party put-on event.
I'm just thinking, hang on a sec. So, but if you weren't a Labour Party member, why would you expect to have been let in?
Okay, so this event was a public event in Red Lion Square. It was put on by a conglomerate of organisations, including the PSC. Now, Jeremy Corbyn is a patron of the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign.
Yep.
It was part of this particular, this event. This is outrageous. There were Jews standing outside. Our names were being called. We were on a list. And once we were walking up to the queue, we weren't let in. Now, there
By
was
whom?
Nazi memorabilia.
By whom? Who was stopping you going in?
There were loads of security there with little yellow sort of jackets with Stop the War emblems on, which had been rubbed out. But this event was held by 3 different types of organisation. It was, as I said, a conglomerate of organisation. It was
all right. Well, I mean, Amber, without focusing too deeply on that meeting, because I don't really know the ins and outs of it. I really don't, whether it was invite or not. You said it was public, but I mean, you're a Labour Party supporter. Where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, I'm not a Labour Party supporter, but we've got a 3-pronged problem here. We've had, and I'm Jewish, we've had a Jewish leadership for many years who we have fought against because they do not believe that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. And now when you've had Jeremy Corbyn, who again is a patron of the PSC, who has constantly throughout his career criticised Israel in all different ways, has platformed on Al-Quds stages, PSC stages, whilst people behind him, and I've witnessed this, people behind him are shouting in Arabic to kill the Jews. We have this whole big issue.
Where was that happening?
Unless Jeremy Corbyn
where were people shouting in Arabic, kill the Jews?
We've been to the Al-Quds marches, which, as you know, are very prominent in London. They happen every year. He stood on platforms at Al-Quds while we're hearing this being screamed. It's all on video. It's all on film. It's all on photograph. I mean, he's been doing this for nearly a decade. So, this is not just an issue that's happened over the past 3 years. This is something that has come up through the ranks of the Labour Party. And we will say this. We have an idea. We need the Jewish Labour MPs, Burgess, Smith, Katz. We need them to resign from the Labour Party to take a stand. We need the Jewish Labour movement, who are still part of the Labour Party and still campaigning for Labour.
But isn't the problem, Ambrosine, that if those Jewish Labour MPs, who, by the way, are going to have bodyguards provided for the Labour Party conference, if they all walk away, then isn't it total victory for the anti-Zionist movement?
No, it's not total victory. They need to walk away, and Corbyn needs to resign. We need to get Corbyn.
But it's not going to happen, is it?
No, and then it's not going to happen when the Jewish MPs are still there, and there are still...
All right, OK, Ambrosine, no, you've made your point. Ambrosine says the Jewish Labour MPs need to walk away. Others would take the view that would be something akin to surrender. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 10:46.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7.
The Notting Hill Carnival, the 2-day event, is now in its 69th year. 2 million visitors. To the leader of the council, Kensington and Chelsea Council, Elizabeth Campbell.
We are so proud to continue to support this event, so we're working as closely as we can with the police to reduce the risk of crime.
I appreciate lots of people enjoyed it, but there are issues. A lot of theft and a lot of crime and a lot of violence.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With The Times. Be not just informed, but well informed.
LBC.
The bank holiday sale at Oak Furnitureland is on now. So get a great new look, all in solid hardwood, and get up to 50% off. Whatever look you're after, modern, rustic, natural oak or painted, it's all there, including sofas at Oak Furnitureland. Our great range of fabric and leather sofas. And with mix and match on all dining, you can choose any table with any chair. The bank holiday sale at Oak Furnitureland. Don't miss it. There's a store near you. Ends Monday.
We got it at Selco. Selco, it's where the trade goes.
At Selco Builders Warehouse, we've got real deals on a wide range of trade-quality building products. In August, we've got 6 by 6 foot close-board fence panels for just £19.99 each ex VAT. Now that's a real deal. We've got even more real deals at Selco Builders Warehouse. For more information, see selcobw.com.
We've got it at Selco. Selco, it's where the trade goes.
Lidl have a great range of British barbecue meats. Chinese-style chicken thighs, only $2.09. 4 sweet chili chicken skewers, just $2.19. Only $2.69 for vintage cheddar beef burgers. And maple glazed pork belly slices, just $2.69. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, and may vary. Selected stores while stocks last.
From the age of 3, young Mozart would watch his sister play the harpsichord with their father, mesmerized by the sound. An early obsession from which his love of music blossomed. At Darwood & Tanner, we believe obsession is a good thing. It's what motivates us to create the perfect smile for every patient, day after day. Darwood & Tanner, your smile is our healthy obsession. Visit darwoodandtanner.co.uk.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a Bridge bedding bed.
At Bridge Bedding, we have hundreds of beds and mattresses in stock from the biggest brands in the UK. We'll beat any price on a like-for-like basis and we'll deliver for free. So before you buy your next new bed, visit a Bridge Bedding Centre, Rectory Groveley-on-Sea, Upminster Road, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a Bridge bedding bed.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Well, the Pope has just spoken and begged for the Lord's forgiveness for the sins of members of the Catholic Church who committed child sexual abuse. And we'll get a report from the West Coast of Ireland from Knock very, very shortly. For now, is the Labour Party now the nasty party? And on Facebook, Tunde says to me, stop this nonsense. JC is the best thing for years. Gwyn says, Nigel, is it because Labour are not Tory enough for you? No, Gwyn, I don't like the Tory party either. Diane says, Labour's gone to the dog's taxi for Corbyn. Some of you are even more cynical. They're all nasty parties, Nigel. They're all the same and all in it for themselves. And that actually is an attitude and an argument that I think is growing in this country. I've certainly detected that over the course of the last year or so. Let's go to Roberto, a new caller to this show who lives in Mitcham. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. I just wanted to say that I totally disagree with what some people are saying, that the Labour Party is now a new nasty party. I don't think it's true at all. And I think Labour still stands for social justice.
Right. I mean, Roberto, it's not just the odd person saying it. Quite a lot of people are saying it.
Well, look, there's no question. The huge inflow of new members to Labour has, of course, brought its own problems. It's not a question. But I also think there's some misrepresentations, and you were guilty of one earlier on when you spoke to Blair's former spin doctor.
Yeah.
And you said that under Blair, Labour was an inclusive party and everything was hunky-dory. Of course it wasn't. You know, I remember very well the extraordinary, or should we say extrajudicial renditions, for example, that happened under Blair, colluding with a torture regime.
But Roberto, the point was, all of this came to light way after Blair had left office.
No, I'm sorry. I lived through the time, and there were clearly voices at the time who were saying this is happening, and Blair and Jack Straw at the time were being criticised for it. And of course that was borne out later in court cases as well.
Yes.
So I just don't think it is ever right to say, look, under Tony Blair or in whatever period, Labour was an inclusive party and now it has stopped being...
Well, Roberta, there's no question that when people look back at Tony Blair now, many will say his long-term legacy was the Iraq War, kowtowing to the Americans on many practices that we would not approve of, and I do understand that. But there was never any suggestion that there were groups within UK society that were excluded from the Labour Party or felt excluded from the Labour Party. Roberta, I'm not losing you, am I?
On NICAP, for example, and of course the way the whole war on terror was conducted could be construed as anti-Muslim, definitely. So, I would be careful with those things.
I don't think it was intended to be. I mean, what I'm saying to you, Roberto, is this. I listened to Majid Nawaz yesterday on LBC, and there were people ringing up, with tears during their telephone conversations saying, we're Jewish and we're frightened of this man becoming Prime Minister. This is a pretty extraordinary state of affairs, isn't it?
It is. It's saddening. It saddens me as well, and I'm sure it saddens Jeremy Corbyn as well. Unfortunately, I must say that there's been a lot of misrepresentation. And can I just refer to one particular instance as well? When you fell in line with that argument that when Jeremy Corbyn, in that clip that emerged 2 days ago, whenever it was, made reference to the Zionists in the audience, he was clearly referring to a group in the audience at that event at which the Palestinian ambassador was attacked. He was not using the term Zionist to refer to all Jews, not at all. He was referring to that group in the audience that had been attacking the Palestinian ambassador.
Well, we could debate that, Roberto, absolutely. What we don't need to debate is the fact that he has spent an extraordinary amount of time sharing platforms, laying wreaths and mixing with people directly involved in terrorism.
Yes, absolutely true. And of course, it is almost inevitable because he has always promoted the dialogue with groups like the ANC, which of course was also regarded as a terrorist group at some point, with Sinn Féin, which was also being regarded as close to the IRA. And yet, history vindicated him in the fact that Sinn Féin now has got MPs in the British Parliament.
They've had them since 1918. They've had MPs since 1918. Roberto, there are many that think he spent far too much time with people who behaved pretty horrendously. And I do understand the argument that you get cases of people who one day are regarded terrorists and the next are regarded as freedom fighters. But I struggle when John McDonnell tells me that somehow Jeremy Corbyn is a peace broker in the Middle East. I really struggle with that.
Well, I don't. I mean, as you heard the earlier speaker, I mean, he has promoted a dialogue with Jewish groups as well as Palestinian groups. He doesn't get the headlines, of course, and for many, many years he was on the fringe of the Labour Party. He was for decades. Exactly, absolutely right. So many people are simply not aware of all the legwork he's put into promoting dialogue between groups that previously had been at loggerheads.
OK, Roberto, thank you. On Twitter I get, please let someone through who's pro-Corbyn. I think we've had more pro-Corbyn callers in the last half hour than we've had anti-Corbyn callers, because I want people to hear both sides of this argument. Let's go to Henry in Macclesfield. Good morning, Henry.
Good morning. I must admit, my view on it is effectively, I think that it's wrong in a democracy that people from either side can't have different opinions.
Certainly.
My experience, because I used to help Esther McVeigh when she was the MP for Tatton, was that the far left set up cyber groups such as on Twitter and troll MPs. And obviously we're talking about the party, but is it a nasty party? The honest answer is I think that's for people to jump to their own conclusions with.
Well, Henry, I said earlier, Henry, like you, campaigning on the ground with some of these hard left groups campaigning against you, they are really nasty and really vicious, and not just to me as a candidate in fighting various elections, but even to the public that turn up at the meetings. They're really nasty. Isn't the problem, Henry, that they've now taken over the Labour Party?
Yes, I think that is a problem, and I think they gave themselves, when they changed their internal vote system, if I remember correctly.
Well, it was it was basically £3 members, wasn't it? Ed Miliband trying to broaden the party membership. It was £3 members, and they flooded in and they voted for Corbyn.
Yeah, I mean, effectively that's what happened. But I remember campaigning out in Wirral West for when Esther was campaigning in that horrendous election. I remember getting trolled and followed around by the far left on the campaign.
Yeah, and they are nasty.
And they are nasty. And I remember advising Esther on her Twitter, social media, until very recently. And effectively, I said to her, you just got to ignore them and just get on with doing what you're doing.
But it's hard, isn't it?
It is hard, and it's all the abuse.
Mind you, Henry, the far right have got some pretty nasty characters too, haven't they?
Both sides of the extreme have nasty characters. I'm not going to say they don't.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, it's important in democracy that you can accept other people's views and opinions. I may not agree with Labour people, but I can accept their view and move on. And the problem that I think we had was when I was growing up in the Tony Blair era, was I remember that as a kid, there was no teaching of respecting other people's views and opinions. And I didn't understand that you have to respect people's opinions.
Well, I think we have moved as a country way too far in a direction that stops proper critical thinking and understanding there are two reasonable sides to every argument. Henry, thank you. I've got time for one last quick caller. Haven't got long. Elliot, new to the show from Nottingham. Good morning.
Morning, Nigel. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I have to say, it does seem to me that the hard left, have hijacked Labour.
I wouldn't say so, Nigel, at all. I mean, if you look at what's going on in the party, I think most people could actually see it's just an orchestrated campaign by the mainstream media against Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, the only people that need to be scared of Jeremy Corbyn is big business that are not paying their tax, the Amazon, Googles and Starbucks of this world. They're the people that need to be scared of Jeremy Corbyn. Everyone else is entitled in Labour. I mean, the whole £3 membership of the party is less than 5% of Labour Party members. We've got 500,000 members.
What I'm going to say, but hang on a second, Elliot. It wasn't 500,000 members 5 years ago, was it?
No, exactly. It wasn't 500,000 members. Jeremy Corbyn, being leader of the Labour Party, has grown the membership of the party, so it's more representative of the country, which unfortunately means there are going to be a very few minority people in the party with very extreme views, and views that most of the other members wouldn't agree with. But we're happy to have that debate with them, and we need to have that open dialogue with them. So
to you, Elliot, Corbyn's not an extremist?
No, Corbyn's not an extremist. At the end of the day, if you look at the last Labour manifesto, which was overwhelmingly backed by, a lot of people in the country and done better than anyone in the party actually thought was possible. I don't really see.
All right, Elliot. No, look. I've had lots of you this morning. Like Elliot, you've defended Corbyn. There are many who will not. This media story will not go away any time soon, and a lot of people do now believe Labour look like the nasty party. Now, moving on. Leaving the European Union without a deal would risk breaking up the United Kingdom. The former president of the European Council has warned. Herman Van Rompuy, remember him? I certainly do. The former Belgian Prime Minister. He was Council President until 2014. He says he believes a no-deal Brexit would lead to new calls for Scottish independence. Do you think a no-deal Brexit would lead to calls for Scottish independence? If you think the SNP will, of course, renew their fight for independence, call 0345 6060 973. Maybe think it makes no difference, in which case text to 84850. Or maybe think, actually, do you know what? They'd rather stay part of the United Kingdom than join a failing European Union, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course you can watch us on Facebook.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, Pope Francis has begged for God's forgiveness for the open wound of church abuse in Ireland, as he called for firm and decisive action to secure truth and justice. He's been speaking at a shrine revered by Irish Catholics in Knock on the second day of his visit to the Republic. Yesterday, the pontiff expressed pain and shame over failures to tackle the scandals. Religious affairs commentator Catherine Pepinster has told LBC Francis has also been meeting some survivors of abuse.
Some of them have said that was a good meeting, because I think he showed a great deal of compassion and expressed it in that meeting. But I think people want more than just compassion.
Amid fears of heightened levels of violence in London, police have been given special powers to stop and search anyone for weapons at the Notting Hill Carnival later. Metal detecting arches are being used at the event in West London for the first time. Some 13,000 police officers are being deployed over 2 days, as more than 1 million people are expected to attend. Former Met police officer Mike Pannett has told LBC extensive preparation will have been in place.
The Met are using every tactic they can. There's been, pre-carnival arrests, as we normally see, to try and remove those. Is a tiny minority of people who commit the majority of crime at Notting Hill. If we could remove those very small numbers, then carnival would be a lot better for it.
It's after a man in his 20s was stabbed to death in south-east London last night. Officers were called to Creek Road between Deptford and Greenwich before midnight. Barack Obama says John McCain, who's died at the age of 81, knew how to put the greater good above our own. The Republican ran for the White House in 2008 but lost out to Mr. Obama. The senator served as a US Navy pilot and was shot down over Vietnam, where he was a prisoner of war for 5 years. Denise Schley, who's left a flag outside the family home in Arizona, says he's a hero.
He had the chance to get out of imprisonment 3 years earlier, and he wouldn't do it because he said unless all the POWs could get out, he wouldn't go without them.
Liberal Democrat sources say Sir Vince Cable is not planning to quit the party anytime soon. It follows reports he'll use a speech next month to announce he's stepping down. The Sunday Times has suggested Sir Vince could unveil plans to allow people to run for the leadership if they're not an MP. And the new Tour de France champion, Geraint Thomas, says cyclists should be forced to wear helmets. It says the government's carrying out a cycling safety review designed to reflect public concern over safety on the roads. But Cycling UK, the UK's national cycling charity, is opposed to helmet laws based on evidence which shows a likely detrimental effect to public health. LBC weather, dry and bright in the east, but cloud, rain and strong winds developing elsewhere through the day, a high of 19 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Thomas Watts.
From the case files of Miss Maureen 118212, the case of the missing vicar.
Well, he wasn't missing. Someone just needed his number to invite him to the garden fete. I found it instantly. Just call me Maureen Directory Inquiries. Oops, more tea, Vicar.
Maureen 118212. Calls to Maureen 118212 cost $4.49 per call plus $4.49 a minute with a minimum 1 minute charge plus your phone company's access charge.
LBC Travel, the Notting Hill Carnival starts today, so it's Family Day. Roads are now closed until Tuesday morning from Notting Hill Gate to the south, Harrow Road to the north, Queensway to the east and the West Cross route to the west. For all the details of the closures, head to our website at lbc.co.uk. Ladbroke Grove Tube Station is also closed, and Notting Hill Gate, Westbourne Park and Royal Oak stations are now exit only. In Deptford, Creek Road is closed in both directions because of a police investigation between Deptford Church Street and Creekside, and on the rails, major engineering work means there are no trains going in or out of Euston Station until Tuesday morning. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
So in today's Guardian, Sunday Observer, Herman Van Rompuy, remember him? I certainly do, and I can't even pretend to go into any debate with and about Mr. Van Rompuy from any position of neutrality whatsoever. Because what they did after the Lisbon Treaty is they said, we're going to have a permanent president for the European Council. This person will become the president of Europe. It hasn't quite worked out like that. And I'm thinking that's probably because of the person they first picked. We were told it'd be a global leader. We were told somebody who would stop the traffic in Washington and Beijing. And of course, Tony Blair himself was limbering up for this role. And in the end, they picked somebody called Herman Van Rompuy. Nobody had basically ever heard of this bloke until I became, effectively, his PR man. This is what I said at his inauguration.
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? And what mechanism? Oh, I know democracy is not popular with you lot. And what mechanism do the peoples of Europe have to remove you? Is this European democracy? Well, I sense, though, that you're competent and capable and dangerous, and I have no doubt that it's your intention to be the quiet assassin of European democracy and of the European nation states.
Well, that was a lively afternoon in Brussels a few years ago. That was back in 2010. So, as I say, no attempt at neutrality here at all. I can't stand the bloke. I mean, he's a fanatic. He wants a United States of Europe. That's what he believes in. That's what he wants. Strange fella. And, of course, people like him do not want Brexit. They will use whatever tool whatever weapon they possibly can. Indeed, we've had the chief negotiator, Monsieur Barnier, constantly talking about the border between the Republic and Northern Ireland, constantly warning there could be a return to terrorism or paramilitary activity. I mean, almost as if he was half encouraging it. And now we've got Herman Van Rompuy telling us that if we leave the European Union, that is going to reignite a campaign for Scottish separation. Is Herman Van Rompuy in believing that a no-deal Brexit will lead directly to another referendum on Scottish independence? I don't think he is for one moment. Indeed, I think one of the reasons the separation referendum did not happen under Alex Salmond's command back in 2014 was he couldn't answer the question about the currency. If you sign a treaty to join the European Union, you have to commit to joining the euro. It's also a massive problem for the SNP that, under Nicola Sturgeon, that a third of her own supporters voted for Brexit. Because if you believe in independence for Scotland, you don't want to be governed from Westminster or from Brussels because you believe in independence. And it always annoyed me that it was ever called an independence referendum back in 2014. It wasn't. It was about separation from the United Kingdom. So I think Van Rompuy is wrong. I think the ultimate choice, if it's being part of the European Union or part of the United Kingdom, I think it's pretty clear where Scotland would be. And I think calls for separation have diminished over time. But could a hard Brexit change that? Because that is Mr Van Rompuy's point, and that is what we're now going to debate. So let me know. You can call 0345 6060 973. Please tell me I'm wrong. If you're a Scottish nationalist, tell me I'm wrong by texting to 84850 and tweet your suggestions using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and as ever, comments on Facebook. Welcome. James, who is new to LBC, is calling from County Durham. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning. So, has Mr Van Rompuy, my old friend, got a point?
In this case, I think, for the SNP point of view, if there's a deal or no deal, they're so against Brexit that they will pursue their renewed case for another independence referendum, regardless. I mean, that's what they primarily exist for, is for separation and for Scotland to be, in brackets, an independent country, even though it's SNP policy to still be part of the European Union. So.
But hasn't that contradiction, which puzzled me for years, hasn't that contradiction now been exposed? That you can't be independent if you're part of the European Union, so kind of make your mind up, Nicola Sturgeon.
To me, although I must say that I'm a Scot that lives in England now, but in the 2014 referendum, I voted against independence and still would under all circumstances.
Uh-huh.
But sorry, what was your question again?
Well, I'm just saying, James. I mean, let's move on. I mean, wouldn't it be a massive risk? So if we leave with no deal, and I can't see that under this Prime Minister, but anyway, let's just gameplay. If we leave with no deal, we leave with... Well, there's no such thing as no deal, because there'll be World Trade Organisation rules, and we'll have neighbourly cooperation on aeroplanes and things like that. But if we leave with what's perceived to be a no-deal Brexit, and if Sturgeon pushes really hard for another separation referendum, if she lost the second one, that'd be the end of it, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, if she lost the second independence referendum, the second in under 10 years, I think that would put the SNP under the serious back burner. I mean, her political career, for one, would be finished.
Yes.
And yeah, I think the independence cause would surely be settled for a generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to think so.
Absolutely.
And I would certainly hope so, as a Scot who believes in the Union. And I would think I would speak for quite a lot of my fellow countrymen that they're quite happy with the evolution, and if there's more powers for the Scottish Parliament, where they take more responsibility for raising their own tax and controlling their own spending, but still be part of the United Kingdom, regardless if we're in Europe or not.
Yeah.
I think most Scots would come to that settled position.
So do I. I think they are already. James, I thank you. the answer is yes. A second Indy ref will happen. Well, it may and it may not. English voters, don't be fooled with the SNP. Their rhetoric hides their nationalism. Well, Pablo, maybe that's true. But what is their nationalism? Is it a nationalism for Scotland as an independent country or Scotland as part of the European Union? And Herman Van Rompuy may well think in his dreams, that people are very, very attracted to the European project. Indeed, he says, and it makes me laugh, actually. Rumpy Pumpy, as we used to nickname him. It makes me laugh when he says, we could end up in a situation in which the EU27 becomes more united. Really? What planet are you on? Have you seen what's happening down in Italy at the moment? Have you heard the leader of the Five Star Movement saying, if you go on behaving like this with us, we'll stop paying our contributions? I mean, I can't think the EU27 has ever looked more disunited. At least that's certainly my view. An ex-EU bureaucrat stirring it up should be more concerned with keeping his united Europe together. The Scottish do not need Brexit or any other excuse to hold another referendum, is what Peter from the South Coast in Lancing believes. Thank you for the last clip. I forgot how good it was, says Neil in Buckinghamshire. Well, Neil, I'm pleased you enjoyed it. Cost me quite a lot of money. I was fined, just for giving my opinion, I was fined €3,000. And the President of the European Parliament said to me, you cannot criticise Mr Van Rompuy because he's not been elected. I said, I know. That's the point I was trying to make. Anyway, I paid the fine. Cheapest publicity ever, I'd have thought. Let's go to John in Glasgow. John, good morning to you.
Morning, Nigel. Herman Van Rompuy is obviously not a very close watcher of either British or Scottish politics because we've had this debate. It's been and gone. When I say been and gone, had the debate, Nicola Sturgeon tried to weaponise the vote after 2016 to rekindle this whole debate about having another Scottish referendum. And the public issued its verdict on that as recently as June last year, where they lost half their MPs.
Yeah, John, I think we are so far past the high watermark of the separation argument, aren't we?
Well, yes, but it has moved on from there to the debate one of the debates you had last Sunday. I can't remember exactly what it was, which is that part of the problem now is that we have the Scottish political class who are ignoring the will of the referendum in 2014, which was similar kind of margins, that the people wanted to stay part of the United Kingdom. It was supposed to be put to bed for a generation. They've spent the last 4 years arguing against it.
Isn't it funny, John? Nicola Sturgeon has got this extraordinary double. She doesn't respect the 2014 Scottish referendum, and she doesn't respect the 2016 UK-wide referendum on EU membership. She's against the result of both referendums.
Well, this is it, and this is the nub of the problem, and it's also the nub of the problem down in England currently, or down in the rest of the United Kingdom currently, which is that the political class up here and the political class down south, the majority of them, and this is what's getting up a great deal of the public's noses, both people who are actually supporters of the Scottish National Party, people who even voted to leave the European Union, people who even voted for Scottish separation, is that they won't accept the result, and people want to move on, and the public are turning against them, and they will pay at the ballot box, and they will pay at the ballot box down in the UK Parliament very soon as well.
I agree, John. Absolutely. Thank you. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show. Exclusively on LBC, and it's now 11:15.
This is LBC.
Lidl have a great range of British barbecue meats. Chinese-style chicken thighs, only $2.09. 4 sweet chili chicken skewers, just $2.19. Only $2.69 for vintage cheddar beef burgers. And maple glazed pork belly slices, just $2.69. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, NI vary, selected stores while stocks last.
Meanwhile, in the Incredibles household, the end of summer doesn't mean the end of fun for Dash. Especially with Superfast Sky Fibre Unlimited for £25 a month, including line rental. It's on an 18-month contract with set-up fees from $9.95. And it's super fast, perfect for streaming. It's almost as fast as Dash. Search Sky Broadband. Pre-order Disney Pixar Incredibles 2 in Sky Store. Fibre areas only. New contract $38.99 after 18 months. Terms apply.
Life is about sharing those magical moments, and food shouldn't be any different. For over 35 years, Marouche has been perfecting this experience with their delicious food, warm hospitality, and live entertainment. Authentic Lebanese cuisine made the traditional way. Marouche, your family restaurant. Book now at marouche.com.
If you own a Swiss watch and it's time to sell it, speak to watches.co.uk. The whole process runs like clockwork. Rolex, Patek Philippe, Omega and more. It only takes a couple of ticks and we pay immediately. Or if you just fancy a change, we could take yours in part exchange. From time on your hands to money in your pocket, it couldn't be easier with watches.co.uk. The pre-owned Swiss watch specialist.
Hi there, I'm Greg from Network Rail with some important news if you're travelling over the late summer or August bank holiday weekend. We're delivering essential rail upgrades from Saturday the 25th to Monday the 27th of August. This will mean some service changes across the UK, including no trains to or from London Euston over the bank holiday weekend and the weekends before and after. So please check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/August or contact your local train company. Network Rail, working for you.
The bank holiday sale at Oak Furnitureland is on now. So get a great new look. Get it all in solid hardwood. And right now, get up to 50% off. Because whatever look you're after, modern, classic, natural oak or painted, you'll get it for less in the bank holiday sale at Oak Furnitureland. There's a store near you. Ends Monday.
Looking for a better return on your savings? You could earn up to 5.35% tax-free interest per annum by investing in Cufflink's innovative finance ISA. Join thousands of investors who are earning more from their savings today and visit cufflinkisa.co.uk to get started. That's KUFLINK, cufflinkisa.co.uk. Capital is at risk. Rate based on a 5-year fixed-term investment. You should seek independent financial advice.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Brussels bureaucrats can't resist it. Anything to put a spoke in the wheels of Brexit and stop it. And today it's my old friend Herman Van Rompuy saying that this may well lead to Scottish nationalism rearing up again. And actually he talks about an existential threat to the United Kingdom. I tell you what, Herman, the whole thing's an existential threat, I think, to the European Union project. At least I hope it is. I don't believe it is to the United Kingdom. What does Andrew in Halifax make of this debate? Good morning to you.
Morning, Nigel. Well, I think you've got to look at what Van Rompuy is saying in contrast, very sharp contrast, to the actual facts here. I mean, we were told before the referendum that it would lead to a spike in demands for Welsh independence, Scottish independence, and what Irish Republicans call a united Ireland. If you look at the reality,
yes,
a majority in Wales actually voted to leave. The SNP lost 21 seats.
Yep.
In the subsequent general election, and interestingly, and this is something that nobody has ever mentioned in the mainstream media, is that in Northern Ireland, the parties who commit to what they call the United Ireland gained 41.8% of the vote in last year's election, which is 1% lower than what it was 15 years ago.
Do you know, Andrew, I saw a piece of polling about 2 months back where only 22% of people polled in Northern Ireland wanted to leave the UK and join the Republic. I think, Andrew, there's an argument that since Brexit, despite the warnings of the William Hagues and everybody, despite Brexit, and Mr Van Rompuy is completely wrong, the UK actually looks more secure than it did before.
Oh, well, I would agree with that. I think that if they ever did have a border poll in Northern Ireland, I don't think the figure to leave the UK will be as low as that, unfortunately.
No.
But I do think that the margin to stay in the UK would be bigger than what we saw in Scotland in 2014.
Yeah, I mean, the 22% figure was very, very low, and some people said, oh, well, it's nearer 40, but if it's between 25 and 35, it gives you some indication. And one of the things, of course, Andrew, people aren't keen on is joining the Eurozone. People aren't mad about that. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I've mentioned several times today the Pope is in the west of Ireland. He's in Knock, in County Mayo, and I'm going to go across to Andrew Louth. Andrew, good morning.
Morning, Nigel.
Good morning. So you've listened to the Pope this morning?
I did indeed, yeah.
Is what he's saying, you know, he's asked for God's forgiveness and everything this morning, is this being taken as an apology from the Pope?
Yes, I think it is, because you have to remember, Nigel, he's been saying all weekend, and he's been acknowledging all the negativity that's been surrounding the Catholic Church for the last number of decades now with regards to clerical, institutional and religious abuse. And he acknowledged it yesterday, he apologised yesterday, and he then met with survivors of clerical and industrial abuse. And then today he addressed it even further and by asking for forgiveness, as you'll hear now.
I beg the Lord's forgiveness for these sins and for the scandal and betrayal felt by so many in God's family.
So as you can hear there, Nigel, he is clearly asking for forgiveness, and he did apologise for it yesterday. And then you heard our Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, who then said that it's not enough just to apologise for it, but the Catholic Church does now have to act on it. Now, there is still kind of that element of it here. He is kind of saying words rather than suggesting what he will do to act on this to prevent it happening again. But certainly the fact that he has addressed it again today in front of it, by the way, crowd was confirmed at 45,000 in this small little village in the west of Ireland. So
and would that be in sort of a fairly wet, windy Western Irish day as well?
It was. We have a saying here in Ireland, as you probably well know, Nigel, Céad Míle Fáilte, 100,000 welcomes. Well, he got 100,000 welcomes with a traditional Irish weather thrown in there as well.
Is there a feeling, Andrew, that the Taoiseach has in some ways used this visit to try to diminish the power of the Catholic Church even further in Ireland?
Well, that's certainly something that has been said, that if there is anything to take from this visit, that the gap between church and state has certainly widened than it used to before.
Yeah,
so there absolutely is an element of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what else? He's been there now for a day and a half. What else is on the Pope's agenda?
Well, today he's flying back from Knock to Dublin at the moment, and then when he lands back in Dublin, he'll be on his way to the Phoenix Park for the final event of his trip, and that's set to be in front of about 500,000 people.
Wow.
In the big Phoenix Park.
Okay.
So that'll be about 2:30.
More to come. Thank you very much indeed. That was Andrew Louth reporting from Knock in County Mayo. 45,000 people out there in the wind and rain this morning. 500,000 expected this afternoon in Dublin. We'll wait and see. But he clearly is issuing pretty fulsome apologies in every way for the child abuse scandals that have happened. Back to the SNP, back to Scotland, back to Herman Van Rompuy saying that a no-deal Brexit could lead to the United Kingdom breaking up. I think he's completely and utterly wrong. What does Blair in Camberley think? Blair, good morning.
Good morning. Well, Nigel, I can assure you the demand for another referendum in Scotland is very high. There's thousands of people marching every other Saturday all over Scotland for independence. But
no, Blair, hang on, Blair. Can we please get this? So is that independence in the European Union, or is it genuine independence?
Well, in my opinion, genuine independence.
But that's not, of course, at all what Alex Salmond, who's having a few personal difficulties at the moment, or the current leader of the SNP want, is it? Because Salmond even at one point talked about Scotland joining the Euro. Now, they've dropped that, given how unpopular it is. But Nicola Sturgeon is utterly committed to the European Union.
I agree with you 100% there, Nigel. To me, independence is no getting rid of one master to own 27 other masters. To me, that's not independent. But the point is, they want independence, you know what I mean? It's up to them to decide if they want to stay in Europe or no, you know.
But I mean, Herman Van Rompuy is saying that if we leave with what he would call a hard no-deal Brexit, that the Scots will be desperate to join Brussels. And I just don't see it, Blair, because I think this in the end, it's the misuse of this word independence, I think, that is becoming the downfall of the SNP.
I want independence, Nigel, and I support the SNP, but I must agree with everything that you're saying, because
fascinating.
I don't want 27 masters in place of one. No, I mean.
Blair, isn't it interesting? We disagree and we agree, both on the same phone call and with good humour. Thank you very much indeed for your call. And it's people like Blair that really have been a huge problem for the SNP. He still is a supporter of them, but there are others who are beginning to see through this charade, this use of the word independence. Maybe if we get an English Parliament, we can have our own indie vote, says John. What vote to get rid of all the rest? I don't think we're going to have that referendum, John, and I still, despite the difficulties that we've had at times with Scotland, think it's ever going to happen. I don't get Nicola Sturgeon's position. She doesn't want to be ruled from Westminster, but wants to be ruled from Brussels. Where's the independence in that? Barry, I agree. I've been saying this for years. I've been shouting into a gale and no one's been listening, but I think at last they are beginning to get there. If Sturgeon wins an election with a manifesto pledge to hold another independence referendum, surely she's entitled to fulfil that pledge. Yes, she is, Jason, absolutely. And in some ways, having that referendum, and I will not use the word independence. It's not. She doesn't want independence. She wants separation from the UK. If she loses another one of those referendums, that I think would just kill off the argument for many, many, many decades to come. Harry is calling from Nottingham. Good morning, Harry.
Morning, Nigel. Yeah, I've got a hot take on this, and it's basically...
A hot take, right, OK. Off you go.
And I'm completely, befuddled by nationalists, and I mean, wanting your own nation state. I'd declare that as nationalist. What kind of nationalist wants to join a supranational organisation? What kind of nationalist as part of that platform is mass immigration? It completely baffles me. Like your last caller said, trading one master for 27.
Yeah. No, I thought he put it rather beautifully, didn't he? Harry, I do not know. It is a great mystery to me, just as Sinn Féin turning is a mystery. Do you know, I shared a platform with Sinn Féin. I mean, I never thought I'd do it, but I did. In the referendum, well, there were two, of course, that took place on the Lisbon Treaty, and I shared a platform with Mary Lou McDonald, who is now the leader of Sinn Féin. I did so because Sinn Féin had always been opposed to the European project, because they were nationalists, Harry, and a nationalist doesn't want to be governed from anywhere else other than govern themselves. And yet, I find it amazing that Sinn Féin have now adopted the same position as the SNP, to think being part of the European project is wonderful. I'm sure, by the way, Harry, that money has got absolutely nothing to do with it. But it's very, very odd. So do you think a no-deal Brexit would lead quickly to another Scottish referendum?
Honestly, I don't. I think the issue's kind of settled now. And I mean, you hear these renewed calls for independence, but frankly, I don't see it happening. We had a vote, and I mean, the margin was quite fair in favour of staying in the UK, and I don't see another call for Scottish independence, at least not for another 20 years anyways.
No, and if they did it, it could be the end of them. Harry, I thank you very much indeed for your call. On Facebook, Brendan says, as a Scot, I would rather have 27 other equal countries. Equal? What, Germany? You having a laugh, Brendan? I'd rather have 27 other equal countries on my side than be ignored and ruled over by one. Well, Brendan, one thing I have found face to face is there are some Scottish nationalists who really have a deep loathing and hatred of the English. In fact, in some cases, it seems to be their key motivation. That's what I think. Tell me I'm wrong. 0345 6060 973. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 11:30 and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
Pope Francis has begged for God's forgiveness for the open wound of church abuse in Ireland. He's been speaking at a shrine revered by Irish Catholics in Knock on the second day of his visit to the Republic. Police have been given special powers to stop and search anyone for weapons at the Notting Hill Carnival in West London later. It follows the death of a man in his 20s after a stabbing in South East London late last night. The Prime Minister's described John McCain as a great statesman who embodied the idea of service over self, following the news of his death at the age of 81. The senator served as a US Navy pilot and was shot down over Vietnam, where he was a prisoner of war for 5 years. LBC weather, dry and bright in the east, but cloud, rain and some strong winds developing elsewhere, a high of 19 degrees.
LBC Travel, the Notting Hill Carnival starts today, so roads are now closed until Tuesday morning from Notting Hill Gate to the south, Harrow Road to the north, Queensway to the east and the West Cross route to the west. For details of all the closures, head to our website at lbc.co.uk. Ladbroke Grove Tube Station is also closed, and Notting Hill Gate, Westbourne Park and Royal Oak stations are now exit only. It's slow on the M25 clockwise after a car broke down earlier on between Junction 5 for the M26 and Junction 6 for Godstone. In Deptford, Creek Road is closed in both directions because of a police investigation between Deptford Church Street and Creekside. And on the rails, major engineering work means there are no trains going in or out of Euston Station until Tuesday morning. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC.
Constipation relief has me singing with glee.
Strutting my stuff for the whole world to see.
Senecot Max, help me feel free.
Natural Senna.
Double strength
helps us back to normality.
It's how a
wonderfully
regular life could be.
Senecot Max Strength is twice the strength of Senecot tablets. For short-term occasional use, always read the label.
It's Greek Week at Lidl. You can get a 6-pack of Mythos beer for only $4.49. A pack of baklava just $2.49. And rice-filled vine leaves only $1.19. Smashing! Plate smashing! Hurry down to Lidl for the full Greek range. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes NI and Scotland.
An amazing kitchen. An amazing bathroom. An amazing hallway. At Amazing Tiles, our range of porcelain, ceramic and bespoke tiles can make any home amazing. Right now, buy 5 metres or more of plain tiles and get a third off the retail price. Visit our showroom and warehouse at Park Royal Road, London, or call 0208 83 84 900. Make your home amazing at amazingtiles.com.
So much confusion, especially when it comes to comparing car insurance. Especially who to listen to, what to believe. Where should we look? Is it a deal? Is it real? Of course, there's a simpler way. One website that can make it crystal clear. Someone to calmly, simply show you the way when it comes to car insurance. Don't be confused. BeConfused.com.
We are here every day and every night of every year. From newborn to old age. We never panic. We take a pulse, agree a plan, make a cuppa. We're doing our rounds, making our visits. We are Michelle, Adam, Alfie, Frankie, Yvonne. And at 3:49 this morning, we were Maisie too. We are the NHS and we are recruiting now. Search nursing careers.
Hey, you know what they say, go big or go home. So get yourself to Big Motoring World for up to 2,000 used BMWs, Audis, Mercedes, VWs, Nissans, Fords, Vauxhalls, Peugeots, Fiats, Mitsubishis, Citroens, Hondas. Oh, I know that's a big list, but I already told you, go big or go home. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk or find them minutes from the M25. Hit it, ladies.
Big Motoring World.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
Well, before we get back to discussing, is Herman Van Rompuy right? Will a no-deal Brexit lead to the breakup of the United Kingdom, in particular Scotland? I think he's wrong, and we're discussing that. Before we get back to it, just a quick thought on Pope Francis. You know, he's 81 years old. And, yeah, he's lived, I think, a pretty clean life. He's in reasonable health. But just think about how punishing that agenda is. You know, he's been out on the west coast of Ireland this morning. He's expected to be speaking to 500,000 people this afternoon. As I say, he's 81 years old. Everything he's apologising for is not his fault. I met him. I met him a couple of years back, not long after he was in my job. Have to say, I found he was very, very warm person to be with, to talk to. I got a sense of fun about him. There was something there that I wasn't expecting to see in a pope. And particularly as my family, going back a long time, were Protestants who were persecuted by Roman Catholics. But it's all been forgiven now. And I think he is a guy absolutely doing his best. Australia, what can you say? If British politics is in a mess, what on earth is going on in Australia? Scott Morrison has just become the Australian Prime Minister. Malcolm Turnbull has been forced out. Have a think about this. Scott Morrison is the 7th Prime Minister in the last 11 years. I mean, it's a bigger, better soap opera in many ways than Brexit. It just goes on. And the Conservative side of the argument, that they're called Liberals in Australia, is absolutely split down the middle over immigration. Many saying way too many have been allowed to come to Australia, with its population now reaching 25 million, but also over climate change. You know, what to do in terms of climate change levy, what to do about renewables, what to do about Australia's massive coal mining industry, and the right very, very split on those issues. And I'll be broadcasting this show next Sunday from Perth in Western Australia. I'm going to go and see a bit of this Aussie soap opera for myself. I thought I was leaving a country for a bit in chaos to go to one of relative tranquility, but no, that is not the case. Gary is calling from Glasgow. Gary, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel. I just wanted to say that I think that the word independence is a little bit overused, because I think the quality and integrity of any nation is really assessed by how well it works with other countries. And I don't think England is working very well with other countries at the moment, but I do...
Which ones, Gary?
Scotland, well, I'm referring to England, but I think...
Yeah, but I mean, are you saying that England is not working with Scotland very well?
It's not, certainly not. No, it's seized devolved powers from Scotland. It's promised Scotland it would remain part of Europe if it votes to be a part of it, so no. But it's important to work well with other countries, and Scotland does work well with Europe. It voted overwhelmingly to stay a part of Europe. And I believe that once independence or self-determination is granted, it will be a good partner in a union with England, but not a union of unequals or subordinates, but of a union of equals.
Well, Gary, hang on a second. I mean, a lot of English people listening to this south of Hadrian's Wall will be saying, what the hell's Gary going on about? Already through the Barnett formula, Scotland gets an incredibly good deal. Your students can go off to university without racking up huge debts. And they'll say, you've also got devolved powers over a whole swathe of areas. I mean, what more does Scotland want, Gary, is what many English would say to that.
Much of those devolved powers were seized, disregarded the Scotland Act and took those away.
Well, that's because of the That's because of the Brexit process, Gary, isn't it? That's because of the Brexit process.
Established in an act, and that is the sort of subordinacy that is wrong. And if you do that, you will get the tens of thousands we're seeing taking to the streets across Scotland every week.
Yep, and you're the second person to refer to that. So what do these people on the streets want? Do they want independence, or do they want to be part of the European Union or United States of Europe or whatever it intends to become?
I'll break it down, Nigel, and I'll give you a very personal example of what it wants. I have a friend who's a top consultant in a hospital here, and he's working on some important research, and they get millions of pounds of grants by this particular research is involving understanding diabetes is actually not just type 1 and type 2, it's many types, and they're getting millions of pounds of research from Europe. It's now being taken off them. It's now being denied because he works with other partners in Europe, and because the UK can't be part of that team, that research money is gone. Now, there's one person I know that is going to vote for independence when that opportunity comes again.
Well, I wonder, Gary, if the ultimate choice is European Union or United Kingdom, I wonder in that situation, I think the Scots would choose the United Kingdom.
I don't think so.
I really do.
European Union, a strong trading bloc, the biggest in the world, is what they'll choose.
Takes all your fish. We're going to want your money.
Table and the blue passports. They want to sit at the top table and have the integrity of being respected as a nation. I don't blame them.
But Gary, there'll be the little countries in the EU get nowhere. It's the big Germanys and Frances that run the whole show. Gary, this debate will go on and on. I thank you for your perspective. Carol on Facebook gives me another perspective. She says, many Scots who voted to remain in the European Union yet voted against independence. If asked in a straight vote to pick between staying part of the United Kingdom or staying part of the EU. Most would vote to stay part of the UK. And I think, Carol, that is absolutely right. Once again, I struggle with the use of this word independence in the context of that referendum that took place back in 2014. You can't be part of the EU and independent. This is and always has been about separation from England. Nick there agreeing with my use of terminology. Nicola Sturgeon says Scotland's economy is on the right trajectory despite 13.4 billion of debt. Yeah, well, that's this year. One of the things that does not get discussed at all, of course, is that if Scotland left the United Kingdom and applied to join the European Union, they would be asked to sign a treaty to commit them to join the euro, and that got Salmond in terrible trouble towards the end of that 2014 campaign. But also, given current budget deficits being run in Scotland, probably what would have to happen is the IMF and the ECB would have to move into Edinburgh and take control of Scottish spending, just as they've done in Greece over the course of the last few years, to get them back within acceptable limits. Doesn't sound like independence to me. Stuart is calling from Edinburgh. Good morning, Stuart.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you doing? Pleasure to speak to you again.
I'm doing very well, and I'm pleased that we're on this SNP independent stroke separation debate stirred up by Herman Van Rompuy. I mean, Stuart, if there was a referendum tomorrow on whether to leave the United Kingdom, I mean, the opinion polls suggest the SNP would lose by an even bigger margin.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit tired of this whole thing that SNP represent all of Scotland. I know a majority of Scots obviously voted SNP, but I think a lot of Scots were disillusioned by them, much as I was, because I'm finding myself between a rock and a hard place. Because I voted for independence, but when that didn't come through, I voted to leave the EU. Yes, there are freaks like me out there.
No, I think there's quite a few of you out there, Stuart, actually.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't think the SNP would succeed. They would declare or demand another referendum, but I think the SNP would demand a referendum if they didn't have a really good Friday off work or whatever, They'd find any reason to batter on about independence, and I think a lot of Scots are sick of it. I'm obviously not speaking for all of Scotland, but I'm just getting tired that the SNP are representing us at the moment. But another thing I'd just like to point out, I heard it earlier on, and it niggled me a little bit, just to let all your viewers know, the independence question, it's not an anti-English thing. It never has been. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Well, Stuart, what I said was that I've detected on the streets of your own city some pretty appalling anti-Englishness.
Yeah, well, I can assure you, Nigel, if you're out with a pint with me, that would not happen.
Okay, well, Stuart, I'd love to get my chance to take you up on that. I really would. Stuart from Edinburgh, thank you very much indeed. And Jo from London says, look, you can actually be in the EU and be a sovereign state, because the EU is a collaborative project between independent states. There's nothing contradictory about the SNP position. Jo, how many times your laws are made somewhere else, and whilst you may have a say over them, we have about an 8% say, the United Kingdom. Scotland on its own, less than a 1% say. Hardly much power, and ultimately it's their courts that can overrule yours. Look, make the pro-EU argument. I don't mind. Don't pretend you can be an EU member and free to do whatever you like. You can't. That's not how it works. You're listening to a Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's now 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Lord Manderson and Tom Watson hosting a secret barbecue to oust Corbyn. Do we need a mass appeal third centrist party?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Brexit analysis, political statements, global debates. It's never been more important to know your Times. Stay well informed with a subscription to The Times and The Sunday Times. Read the stories that matter, in print or online from just £3 a week. Search Times Subscribe today. Terms and conditions apply. Available to new subscribers only.
Everyone's asking you if you've ever had PPI. And for a good reason. If you've had a mortgage, loan or credit card in the past, you could be owed thousands. The deadline for making a PPI claim has now been set. So now's the time to text Allay Claims to see if you could be due a refund. We'll do a free, no obligation PPI check and let you know if you could be owed money. So don't be off your trolley. Get in touch with Allay Claims now. Text WIN to 60012. That's WIN to 60012.
Don't miss the last few days of the Furniture Village sale this bank holiday weekend. With final reductions on a huge choice of sofas, dining and beds, including all our famous brands. So pop in store or go online now and complete your home in one in the Furniture Village sale. Many offers end bank holiday Monday.
Love your skin, love your hair, love your nails. Perfectil delivers nutritional support from within, including zinc, to help you maintain normal skin, hair and nails. Perfectil, the science of beauty, from Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company. From Boots, pharmacies and Vitabiotics.com.
We are here every day and every night of every year. From newborn to old age. We never panic. We take a pulse, agree a plan, make a cuppa. We're doing our rounds, making our visit. We are Michelle, Adam, Alfie, Frankie, Yvonne. And at 3:49 this morning, we were Maisie too. We are the NHS and we are recruiting now. Search nursing careers.
Lucky, lucky, lucky me. At Hyundai, we're big fans of hard work. It's the reason our cars are so well made they come with a 5-year unlimited mileage warranty. It was hard work that helped us make our bold SUV, the new Tucson, even more refined inside and out. But hard work needs a reward, which is why you get an additional £500 list price saving if you test drive and buy the new Tucson before the end of September. Book your test drive at hyundai.co.uk. Terms and conditions apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, Herman Van Rompuy is convinced that a no-deal Brexit will lead to Scotland breaking away from the rest of the United Kingdom. I don't think he's right. Before I return to that, I want to pay tribute to Rosemary Powell. We received a phone call on this show on Remembrance Sunday last year when I was asking people what were their memories of Remembrance Day. What did it mean to them and their families? I got a phone call from a guy saying, my mum was at the first ever Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal in 1921. My mother was on the bridge with her mother at Kew collecting money in the first ever official Poppy Appeal. I said, well, thank you very much indeed for that. And the caller said, and she's still out this year. I said, excuse me, I'm struggling here with the arithmetic. Well, that was Rosemary Powell. And another story surfaced. And it was very interesting because I think actually it was him ringing up, the son ringing up to this show that gave her publicity, that led directly to her being awarded the MBE, because she'd been unrecognised. So she sold poppies all the way through from 1921 to 2017, and I'd hoped to go and buy a poppy off her personally this year. I'm not going to be able to do that. She died on the 15th of August, aged 103, somebody to whom remembrance meant an awful lot. Her own father wounded in the head in World War I, 2 godfathers killed, 3 uncles killed. She served as a nurse throughout the whole of World War II. And there's one happy ending to this slightly sad story. She actually got presented with her MBE 9 days before she died. So she got recognised for being the longest serving poppy seller ever. That was Rosemary Powell. Back to more contentious issues, and anything to do with me and Herman Van Rompuy always seems to be contentious and generally ends up in me getting fined or ostracised. I think he's wrong. Let's go to Stirling and speak to Marcus. Marcus, hello there.
Hello, Nigel, dear boy. Nice to chat with you. Now, before I make my point, I just want everyone to know that I'm thick and I'm stupid.
Oh, no, are you? You must be a Brexit voter, Marcus.
Please. Make that clear, because I voted for Scotland to remain part of the United Kingdom.
No.
Especially short of the old Grey.
Oh, God, you're really stupid, aren't you?
I voted again. I know it's hard to believe, but I voted for the UK to leave the European Union. So please allow me to make my
point. Well, I'll go slowly, Marcus, you know.
Yes. Can I talk about immigration? Is that okay?
Well, I've done my best over the years too. Not everyone likes it, but of course, Nicola Sturgeon, of course, thinks that Scotland should have a completely open door, doesn't she?
Well, a completely open door. Nicola Sturgeon was 3 years ahead of taking her Syrian refugee quota. Now, she had to take 2,000, Nigel.
Yeah.
The UK had to take 20,000. She came out in the press and had a mass celebration to say, we've taken our 2,000 Syrian 3 years ahead of schedule. Now she came out recently and said that she wants to take 3,000 North African and Middle Eastern migrants. Now, these are children. And you know, these are the type of children that could play prop forward for England. They may look 35, but they're actually, 15. So I don't know what they're taking. But the writing is on the wall, and thousands of Scots are now seeing the same problems and strains on their housing, strains on GP appointments that you have in the South East. Now, I used to live in Bromley, down in Kent. You know it well.
Yep.
I am saddened. I am heartbroken. I am shocked to see what is going on down there.
So do you think, Marcus, that...
Telling me.
So what you're saying to me is that actually immigration very soon could start to become part of the Scottish debate?
It has to. It has to become part of the Scottish debate, and for so long people have been demonised.
Okay.
They've been vilified for wanting to talk about immigration. But when you look at the numbers and you look at the quickening, Nigel, you look at the fact that she's 3 years ahead. No wonder Herman Van Rompuy thinks she's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I tell you who would really like Nicola Sturgeon in this mood? Angela Merkel. Because Angela Merkel's got this huge problem. 1.4 million people have settled in Germany because of her opening up the door. A lot of really big social problems as a result. If she could park $500,000 on Scotland, she'd be very pleased with Nicola Sturgeon, wouldn't she?
Well, of course, and that's the attack. That's the strategy. You know, the arrows are all pointing in. If Scotland does lose its marbles and vote to leave the UK,
it's not going to happen.
You can imagine the strain on that border.
It just isn't going to happen. Marcus, it isn't going to happen. That's because there are too many stupid people like you, OK? Marcus, thank you. I'm going to move on to Judith in Yeovil. Judith, hello again. How are you?
Well, I'm in bed actually at the moment. I'm not feeling very well.
Oh, but well enough to pick up the phone and ring LBC?
Absolutely, because what I want to say, Nigel, is that I've always been a member of the Conservative Party until David Cameron became leader, and then I resigned. I've always been a Conservative voter, and although I voted for UKIP in local elections and in the general election...
Almost like a sort of confession, isn't it?
Cameron had it.
But I did vote for UKIP. Yeah, OK.
And I don't mind admitting that. And I've always been a supporter of the Union.
Yes.
But in recent years, I've had a rethink on it. And my thoughts are this. I think it's an artificially constructed, artificially political construction in exactly the same way as the EU is. It is a microcosm of the EU. We have one country in the four who is subsidising and paying for the other three.
Well, but that one country, Judith, and people don't realise this, but 86% of the population of the UK lives in England, so it is a very, very dominant partner in every sense, isn't it?
It is, but nevertheless, they have the benefits that we don't have. For instance, no student loans in Scotland.
I know.
Free prescriptions for them all, which we don't have in this country.
Yeah, I didn't mention that. Yeah.
And I have come to the conclusion we would be better off saying to the three of them, you're on your own, guys and girls, and we'll have...
So we're just going to ditch... Hang on. So we're just going to ditch them all, Judith, are we?
Yeah, it wouldn't worry me.
But I mean... You know, what is Wales supposed to... I mean, Wales, there's no desire for separate independent state of Wales.
Because they know where the money's coming from.
All right, so we can't just dump them, Judith, can we?
I could.
No, come on.
Yes.
Come on.
If they wanted to rejoin, it would have to be constructed in a totally different way.
Well, they'd have to crawl back on their knees to us, would they?
No, but why should we support them, Nigel?
Judith, I think the Barnett formula needs to be looked at. I agree with that. Scotland's got a ridiculous deal, and that does need to be sorted out. Of course it does. There's no question about that. I think, Judith, the United Kingdom works because despite the differences, you know, over a 300-year period, what has united us has been a lot stronger than what's divided us, and I still think that's the case. Just about. I think it was tested very severely in 2014, but I think the union stays together. Judith, I thank you for your call. Wow, Judith, just get rid of the lot. It's pretty tough stuff, but I promise you, there's quite a lot of people in London who now talk about Scotland in a very different way to how they would have done 20 years ago. They feel the Scots have been pretty unpleasant about the English, despite everything. Philip from Whiteleaf says the only way Scotland gets independence is if they ask the English to vote on it. You see, Philip's convinced that we'd just be like Judith, ditch 'em. I don't think that is going to happen. What does Dan from Chelmsford make of it all? My last caller of the morning. Dan, hello.
Hello, Nigel, how are you?
I'm OK. So, is Van Rompuy right? A hard Brexit, as he would call it, does it lead to Scottish separation?
Well, I actually didn't call to talk about that. My question to you...
Didn't you? Well, there we are. Right, OK, let's let you go. John is calling from Prestatyn, my last caller. You've got a minute, John.
Hello, Nigel. I've met you a few times. I've been to a few of your meetings.
Right.
Nigel, they're missing the complete fact here. There's too much love between Scotland and England. We've been through two world wars together.
Yes.
There's intermarriage between the two countries. These two countries, we're one. There's no way the Scottish are ever going to give up the English Parliament and have a say in English politics. It's not going to happen. There's no way. Nicola Sturgeon is in a dream. There's no way it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, but but of course the SNP exists to separate Scotland from the rest of the United Kingdom, so I guess she has to keep talking and campaigning about it. John, in one way, if they did have another referendum and lost it not by 10% but by 30%, maybe that would just end the whole debate.
Oh, I cease to believe that this talk of Europe is making it stronger. I think Scotland are becoming more and more aligned to us.
Yes.
They hate the thought of leaving us and moving with Europe.
It's very interesting.
Scottish people, they don't want to do it.
It's very interesting. And we had a caller earlier on about immigration in Scotland. And when you look at the social attitude survey, you find actually the differences in big polls between Scots and the English are nowhere near as great as many say. John, I thank you very much indeed. Well, thank you, Herman Van Rompuy, once again for brightening up my day. I think you're wrong. I think Brexit actually has brought the Union closer together, despite what so many of the experts thought. I'll be back tomorrow. It's a bank holiday, but I'm here tomorrow at 7. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, it's Andrew Castle. And up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, Richard Dawkins is working on a picture book for children with a working title of OMG, I Think I'm an Atheist. Is indoctrinating religion into children a form of child abuse? Dawkins will be joining us. Before that, a new study by IPPR has warned that repeated calls from ministers for migrants to integrate have been undermined by major cuts in key programmes designed to help them settle. What's the best way to encourage migrant integration? But first, Mandelson and Watson have buried years of enmity to host a secret barbecue. Plotting to